Rain came sideways off the Hudson, needling the cracked windows of the fourth-floor walk-up like a crowd with grievances. Elena Cruz climbed the stairs two at a time, backpack digging into one shoulder, the other arm clutching architectural models wrapped in plastic like fragile organs. Her shoes squelched. Her throat tasted like espresso and lightning. Inside, the apartment smelled like old plaster and newer failure. Bottles glinted along the radiator, brown glass trophies for nights no one won. Rafael Cruz sat hunched at the table in his work boots, the boots he never laced anymore because what was the point? His hands shook around a cheap tumbler he called One Finger, even though he poured three. "L," he said without looking up, voice catching on the nickname. "You're home early. It's 11:42. She dropped the backpack, slid models onto the only clear surface, the top of the microwave, then turned so he'd see her face. "We're 3 weeks late on rent, Mrs. Juan cried on the phone. "Dad." She actually cried. He laughed, a dry, empty sound that tumbled over and died between them. "Eviction's just a tidy word for gravity." "Then fight it." She swept an ashtray into the trash and rinsed a plate that wasn't dirty enough to justify its existence in the sink. "Go to interviews. Show up sober. Pick one thing to keep." He did look up then, and for a second she saw the foreman he'd been on Midtown Steel. Barked orders in 2 languages, balanced on beams with skyline in his teeth. Pride and a mean sense of care. "You think I didn't try?" "I think you stopped." The knock started as an argument with the door and became a battering. Plaster dust jumped from the jam. Raphael's glass slipped, shattered. A star burst across the linoleum. His color drained from tan to paper. "Elena." His voice was a thread pulled thin. "Don't open it." The lock gave a tired sigh. Metal spoke to metal with professional impatience. The door swung inward on 3 men in rain-dark suits. The first was built from angles and bone, the kind of size that turned plywood into foam. The second wore old scars on new cheekbones and a smile that didn't rise to his eyes. The third, who didn't need to be first to be in charge, stepped in last and looked around like light obeyed him. He was younger than the word boss implied, late 20s maybe, but not young anywhere that mattered. Dark hair cut to severity, a jaw made for verdicts. Under the charcoal coat, his suit lived in the gravity that comes from being tailored to a life. Eyes a gray so pale they could have been steel-cooled to the exact temperature of mercy. "Rafael Cruz," he said, accent a dusting of old Naples over Manhattan consonants. "You've been avoiding my calls." Rafael rose too fast and swayed. "Mr. Valente," I thought. "When a man owes me $2 million and disappears, I do my own thinking." 2 million landed in Elena's chest like an iron. All the oxygen went to math and came back wrong. She caught the table with the heel of her hand and found her voice somewhere under it. 2 million what? The pale eyes slid to her, cataloging and concluding with unnerving calm. "Interest is a language the poor are forced to speak," he said mildly. "Your father became fluent." "Elena," Rafael hissed, "go to your room." She didn't move. "Who are you?" "Adrian Valente." He let the surname sit like a court stamp. "I finance and build in this city. Bridges, hotels, people." Her jaw set. "The kind of building that comes with guns." He almost smiled. "Guns come with the city. I supply foundations." His gaze flicked to the dripping window, the scrap of weathered brick visible beyond. "And roofs, when they're earned." The big man to his left shifted. The scarred one took a slow inventory of exits and Elena's pulse. Adrian moved nothing but air and still held the room. "You have 72 hours, he told Raphael. 2 million. Cash equivalents if you must degrade yourself with conversions. After that, I collect by other means." "Other?" Elena started. "Not your concern," Raphael cut in, sharp with sudden fear. "She's not part of this." "Everything you love is part of this," Adrian said, not unkind. "That is how love works." "You can't take," Elena began, but he was already turning. In the threshold, he paused and considered her the way architects consider load paths. "What are you studying?" he asked. She blinked. "Architecture." "Then you know." A structure survives by distributing weight. Pain is weight. He held her a beat longer, the smallest ghost of something like apology in the line of his mouth. 72 hours, Raphael. Heed gravity. They left with the quiet of men who never needed to slam doors to be heard. When silence finally stopped ringing, Elena exhaled and realized she'd been standing on her toes as if the floor might save her if she took less of it. 2 million, she said. Raphael cradled his head. It grew. Like mold. Like interest. She wanted to break every bottle and then time. Who did you borrow from? He flinched. Everyone. The city hissed through the window frame. Elena picked up the broom because action was oxygen, because if she didn't sweep, she'd scream. At exactly 10 the next morning, her phone lit with a number she didn't recognize and a voice she already did. Ms. Cruz, Adrian said, the syllables smooth as tempered glass. We should talk about options. Her professor explained sheer walls in the background while Elena's world rotated to a new axis. She stepped into the hallway, leaned against cool cinder block and said, My father doesn't have 2 million. I am rarely surprised, he said, but I am never confused. Come at 4. My driver will bring you. I have class. You have time, he said, until you don't. The line went quiet before she could parse whether that was a threat or the worst kind of truth. At 4, a black SUV delivered her to a townhouse of glass, stone, and arrogance facing a narrow park where trees pretended they belonged to the block. Inside, heat. Art that belonged in a museum she didn't have time to visit. Marble that might, if you leaned down, whisper in Italian. Adrian walked in from a corridor flanked by books that had been read and knives that had not. Without the rain, he was even more precise, the suit a darker stripe of the same winter palette. Up close, a thin white scar cut through one eyebrow, a flaw that made the face less holy and more human. Elena, he said like he knew the weight of her name. Coffee? Water? I'm not here to be hosted. You're here to be offered a way not to drown. He waved her into a study where the table could make and unmake governments. He sat, and the room sat with him. Your father owed my legitimate entities a portion, he began, sliding a file that was thicker than the phone book Mrs. Huang still kept behind the counter. He owed less legitimate men the rest. I bought their claims to stop them from collecting in ways I don't prefer. How altruistic. How practical, he corrected. Dead debtors stopped paying. He listed amounts, dates, signatures, a constellation of bad nights that made a galaxy of ruin. Elena read until numbers became weather again. And the option. You marry me, he said, as if asking 1 sugar or 2. Your father's ledger is burned. He lives. You live. With my name in my house, under my protection. She laughed, short and broken. You're buying me. I'm buying peace, he said, and for the first time lost a millimeter of calm. Which is more expensive than you think. You will not be touched without your consent. You will be educated where you want under my security. In public, you will be my wife. And privately, you will be under my roof, he said. The pause after said more than any vow. Nothing I do for you is free, but nothing I will do will shame you. You talk like a contract. Because I honor them. He leaned back. A ring in my world is a treaty. I'm offering you a border. She stood so quickly her chair stuttered on the rug. No. He didn't flinch. You have 48 hours. A rival faction is pressing my timeline. They prefer collateral that screams. Something flickered across his expression there. Anger, not at her, but at the idea of anyone else in the sentence with her and hurt. Go, he said, voice low again. Fight gravity. If you fail, my offer remains. He glanced at the rain-clean window. Until it doesn't. On her way out, the operations chief, a woman in a blazer sharp enough to cut and cheekbones blunt as honesty, gave Elena a look that wasn't sympathy but wasn't not. A name tag on her keycard flashed, Mara de Soto. On the sidewalk, the SUV door opened as if by thought. Elena didn't get in. She ran 3 blocks and rode a bus and counted seconds and wished seconds were money. That night, the knock didn't bother with the door. It blew the hinge. Men in masks poured into the apartment like a plan. Raphael rose and shouted and was silenced with a blow. Elena grabbed the cast-iron skillet and cracked a skull. Someone cursed in Russian. Another man laughed, delighted by the effort. They left her with a Polaroid of her father tied to a chair and a message scrawled on the back in block letters. The girl for the old man. 24 hours. By the time Adrian arrived, he didn't explain how he knew, and she didn't ask. Elena had already scrubbed blood she could never get out of the grout and wrapped her hands in dish towels that didn't want to stop being white. His face when he saw the photo was something she had not seen on him, unarmored, ugly with fear. "They took him," she said, voice made of sand. "They want me." "They will not have you," he said, like a weather report he intended to enforce. He looked at Mara. "Warehouse 4, now." Mara nodded once and put a phone to her ear. Orders moved out across the city like a drawn bow's breath. Elena held the photo like it might burn. "If I don't go, they'll kill him." Adrian looked at her then, all of her, and made a decision that changed gravity again. "Then we go together." They staged the planning in a room that smelled like oil and old Triumphs, an industrial shell on the Brooklyn waterfront where cranes slept like dinosaurs. Mara drew a map on a whiteboard in clean, muscular strokes. Volkov's crew favors the old textile factory on Navy. 2 stairwells, 1 freight elevator welded shut, roof access patched with sheet metal. Cameras on corners, but their angles are lazy. "Inside?" Adrian asked. 20 men, give or take 5 who owe somebody a favor. Her eyes slid to Elena, not unkind. "Hostage in the central office, taped to a chair. They'll have a line of sight to the main entry so they can feel important pointing guns at something." Elena pinched the bridge of her nose until sparks danced. "Why take my father if what they want is me?" "Because you'll run toward a burning house if your family's inside," Mara said. "He's bait. You're leverage. And you." Elena hadn't meant to say it out loud, but the room heard anyway. Adrian turned to her, the edge gone from his posture even if his jaw still refused to compromise. "I am not bait," he said carefully. "I am the enemy they can name. Names make fear feel tidy." "Then untidy it," Elena snapped, surprising herself. "Go around names." He watched the spark with a flicker of interest he didn't hide fast enough. "We are going around," he said. "Front team will posture, rear team will enter through the loading bay they use as a clubhouse, and a ghost crew will take the roof, cut the breakers, force them to pick which darkness they'd like to die in." Mara capped the marker. "If we do it clean, we're home in under 7 minutes." "And if they panic," Elena said. "Then we improvise," Adrian said. "We do not shoot the hostage." He looked at Elena so she understood he meant more than the obvious. "And we do not trade queens." Elena pictured the Polaroid, the bruise on Raphael's cheek flowering like mold. "I'm going." "No," Adrian said, as if correcting a decimal. "Yes," she said, the word a scaffold. "If they took him because of me, they hear my voice when this ends." Mara's mouth ticked. She's not wrong. "You are not neutral," Adrian told Mara, but his glare slid off her like rain. He ran a hand along his jaw, counted different kinds of risk, and compromised in the precise way of a man who hadn't had to learn it often. "Fine, vest, helmet, you don't leave my shadow. I don't need... You need not to die," he said, not raising his voice and somehow making the air fall into place anyway. "We don't get a second try." They moved at midnight under a sky the color of ammunition. The SUVs idled a block out. Men spilled and vanished. Radios murmured in a language of clicks and short nouns. Elena could feel her heart in her wrists. The vest bit at her collarbones. Mara fitted the helmet with quick hands and a surprising gentleness. "2 rules," Mara said. "If someone says down, you kiss the floor and stay married to it. If I drag you, you come." "Are you always like this?" Elena asked. "Like what?" "Complicated," Elena said, and surprised herself by a ghost of a smile. "Thank you." Mara's face did something almost human before it sealed again. "Don't make me regret it." Adrian slid in beside Elena at the dock door crease. He smelled like winter and expensive restraint. "Stay behind me," he said. "I'm not freight." "You're gravity," he said. "I need you near the center." Roof team cut power. The factory went black in a way the city almost never does. Men shouted in Russian and English. Flashlights jittered against walls. Somebody's courage failed audibly. Adrian moved like geometry, angles, lines, inevitabilities. Mara flowed 2 steps ahead of disaster, her voice in the radio a metronome. Left stairwell clear, loading bay 2, eyes on office. The office was a glass-walled box that had seen better leases. Inside, Raphael slumped, tape around wrists and mouth, eyes hot with panic and, when he saw Elena, shame that burned hotter. A man with a shaved head and a neck thick with tattoo ivy grabbed Raphael by the hair and jammed a pistol against his temple. "Stop there," he said to the dark. "Girl comes. We trade. Everybody learns manners." Adrian stepped into the office rectangle where a dying exit sign washed him in weak green. "We're past manners," Tattoo Neck sneered. "Valente, the boy king." "Put the gun down," Adrian said, as if offering a tired employee a chair. "Walk out the east door. Tell Volkov his invitations are getting sloppy." "You walk," Tattoo Neck said, emboldened by the sound of himself. He pressed the barrel harder. Raphael flinched and wheezed. Or he... Elena did not think. She moved. Later she would reconstruct the path. The office door was latched but old. Her shoulder was a battering ram she hadn't known she owned. Her heel found the man's instep. Her palm found his throat. The skillet she had used earlier to dent a thief's skull was not here, but a stapler was, and it met his temple with a sound like punctuation. The gun went off. The bullet took a screaming bit of ceiling. Adrian was suddenly everywhere, pinning the man, wrenching the weapon free, putting the barrel on someone else who had decided to be brave at the wrong time. The room filled with commands, some shouted, more implied. In under 9 minutes, it was done. Elena ripped tape from Raphael's mouth. "Dad," she breathed. He tried to apologize and coughed dust. "We're going home," she said, though the word felt too small for what lay ahead. On the way out, Mara caught Adrian's sleeve. "The tracker wasn't theirs," she murmured. "It was ours, or looked like it." Adrian's face didn't change, which meant everything changed. Inside? Motor pool access, sometime this week. Names? 6, realistically. He didn't look back at the men being zip-tied or the blood on the concrete where it would dry to a darker lie. He looked at Elena, who was holding her father up with fury and bone-deep exhaustion, and made a different kind of choice. "Go with them," he told her softly. "My driver will take you to a place no one can reach without me. I'm not hiding. You're regrouping," he said. "There's a difference." She opened her mouth to argue and then closed it because the floor had started to tilt in a way that meant adrenaline was cashing its check. She nodded once. At the safe house, less house than fortress with views, the doctor clucked and stitched and struck Raphael sober with threat of infection. Elena showered until her skin felt like someone else's, pulled on sweatpants from a drawer that shouldn't have known her size, and stood at a floor-to-ceiling window looking at a city washed clean of nothing. Adrian found her there, his tie still absent, the scar in his brow more pronounced when his face forgot to be official. "You move like someone who thinks 3 steps ahead," he said, "even when you're frightened." "I am 3 steps behind," she said without looking away from the river. He stood beside her without touching, as if they'd rehearsed the distance. "You don't owe me your yes." She turned. "But you still want it. I want you alive," he said simply. Then, after a breath, "And I want the quiet that happens in my head when you are." Something complicated slid through her chest. "Your world is wrong for me. My world is wrong for me." He exhaled and for the first time let her see the toll. "But it is mine to fix. Through marriage. Through alliance," he said. "Call it what makes it survivable." He didn't reach for her hand, and somehow that made wanting it worse. "Rest," he added, stepping back. "I'll deal with Volkov's aftermath and the leak." "The what?" He held her gaze. Someone let them put eyes on you. He left on that sentence, and Elena stood a long time in the reflection of her own face on glass, wondering which part of herself would be required next. Morning came colorless. Elena woke from a dream of scaffolds into the softer nightmare of a bed that didn't belong to her and a view too expensive to believe. Her mouth tasted metallic. The nausea rose without warning. She barely made the bathroom. When it passed, she sat on the cool tile and did subtraction. Last period. A date on a wall calendar back at the apartment with a picture of a cat in a construction hat. She counted backward, and the math arranged itself into an answer that made the room feel both bigger and too small. No. Yes. Downstairs, an army-made breakfast. She avoided coffee because the smell had turned against her, and ate toast like it was a test she might ace if she didn't make eye contact with it. Mara appeared in a graphite suit and a bun that could outlast weather. "You're pale," Mara observed. "Sit. Eat. Working on it." "Good." Mara poured tea. "We pulled the tracker from your car, hidden under the rear fender, painted to match road filth. Whoever did it had access and time." Elena set the toast down. "Inside your house." "Inside our network," Mara said, voice flat as the table. 6 with the right clearance. 1 I'd bet my bonus on if I still wanted a future. "Who?" Mara didn't answer. That was an answer. Elena stood. "I need the drugstore." Mara's eyes flicked to Elena's face, and in that split second made 3 or 4 possible stories. "We can have anything delivered." "No." The word was too sharp. She softened it. "I need to go myself." Mara took a long breath, weighed trust against protocol. "Take car 3, she said finally, "and don't be clever." "I don't have the energy." Which was almost true. The pharmacy was normal in the way a church is normal. Aisles of solutions for tolerable human suffering. Elena kept her head down, paid in cash, threw the small bag into her tote like it was shame, and went back to the car. A black sedan pulled out a breath after they did and sat 3 vehicles back with the focus of a cat. Her phone buzzed. "Adrian." "Where are you?" he asked, not quite accusing. "Coming back," she said. "I think I'm being followed." Silence took 1 second. "Describe the car." "Black, unhelpful, I know. 2 men, patient." "Morrison to 5th, he said. "Warehouse row, do not stop. Do not signal them, you've noticed." "Is this a test?" she tried, because humor sometimes mattered more than truth. "This is me being a person who wants you to keep breathing," he said, and she could hear the exhale he didn't let himself make. "Drive." She did. At the mouth of the industrial complex, 2 SUVs unpeeled from shadow and swallowed the sedan like a trick. Men got dragged into the kind of daylight that doesn't forgive. Adrian opened Elena's door before tires had fully conceded momentum, hands scanning her body for blood like he didn't trust the lack of it. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm fine." A lie and a truth, tangled. He glanced toward the pinned men, jaw a geometry of restraint. "Volkov's scouts," he said. "Trying to map your habits." "I don't have habits here." "You're Elena Cruz," he said, like it was an equation that solved to obvious. "You make patterns out of chaos. That's why you build." Before she could answer, Mara strode over, expression carved from consequence. "You're going to love this," she told Adrian. They didn't need to tailor. They could have just watched the dot. The tracker was on her car for at least a week. Adrian stared without blinking. "Inside." "Inside," Mara confirmed. "And you're going to love this part less." The access window points to 6. The signature on the requisition. Cleaned, but not clean enough. Matches someone who has stood in every room we care about. "Mara," he said, a warning and a plea. She hesitated. For a heartbeat, her face was a battlefield. "Don't make me say it." He said it for her. A name that tasted like loyalty dying. And then, "No." "I know," Mara said softly. "I know." Elena could see pieces moving behind his eyes, rearranging the map of his world until it made a new kind of cruel sense. Betrayal had a geometry too, and he had just measured it. A phone rang. Not Adrian's. The landline in the safe house kitchen that ought to have been ceremonial. Elena picked up because she was standing closest and because sometimes you do the thing that feels least sensible. Gambino residence, a male voice said in her memory from some other life, but here she said Valente residence, and it sounded like trespass. Elena Cruz, a stranger said. Slavic vowels sanded down by years in New York. You don't know me. Then hang up, she said, because bravery and stupidity were cousins. I'm a friend of someone who used to be a friend of Adrian Valente, the voice went on. He wants you to know that the 2 million was a story. Cold climbed her spine. What story? The kind that ends in a ring, the man said. Your father owed 50,000. Adrian made it 2 million to hurry you where he wanted you. She gripped the counter until her knuckles asked for a union. You're lying. Am I? He asked gently. Think about the timing. Think about the flowers and the drivers and the rescue that happened exactly when your fear needed it. He lowered his voice. You're carrying his child, Ms. Cruz. That makes you valuable. To him. To us. Her mouth went dry. How do you? My friend pays attention to details, he said. Meet us in 10 minutes at the service entrance. We will give you freedom he never will. The line died. Elena stared at the handset like it might confess who it had been a moment before. In the window, her reflection looked like a girl and a woman arguing about the same body. She picked up her cell and called Adrian. What happened? He asked immediately. Nothing, she lied, because the truth was a grenade and she wasn't ready to pull its pin in his hands. When are you coming back? Soon. Okay. Her voice softened. Be careful. I don't know how, he said, and then laughed at himself. But I'll try. She hung up, walked to the service entrance, looked at the car idling in the alley, freedom or trap, and then turned around and went back inside. She threw the test in the bathroom trash face down and pressed the heels of her hands into her eyes until stars came. When she could see again, she went downstairs and found Mara by the window. If you were me, Elena asked, when would you tell him? Mara didn't look away from whatever only she could see. Before someone else does, she said. Then quieter. And when you're ready to hear whatever the answer means. Elena nodded and swallowed and found the taste of iron again. She texted Adrian 2 words, come home, and in the reflection of the glass, watched herself decide to fight on the same side as the man she still wasn't sure she could trust. Sleep had become an accessory Elena couldn't afford. Every time her eyes closed, she saw flashes, the muzzle flare, her father's broken voice, Adrian's hand catching hers in the dark. She'd lived through storms before, but this one had a name, a face, and a vow she didn't know whether to believe. The safe house hummed with controlled chaos. Voices overlapped in the hallway, Mara giving orders, guards reporting movements, screens flickering with footage from every angle. This wasn't just protection. It was a war council dressed in designer suits and bulletproof vests. Elena stood by the kitchen island, hair damp, a cup of tea trembling slightly in her hand. When Adrian entered, the air adjusted to him the way rooms adapt to gravity. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his tie gone. Without the armor of formality, he looked almost human, tired, lethal, and something else she couldn't name. You haven't slept, he said. She met his gaze. Neither have you. He almost smiled. Touché. Mara appeared, a tablet under one arm, eyes sharp as ever. Update. The men who tailed her have been processed. Same insignia as Volkov's, but funding came from an offshore account linked to... Don't say it, Adrian interrupted quietly. Not until we confirm. Elena frowned. Say what? Mara's gaze softened, a rare fracture in steel. There's a mole inside Valente Holdings, someone close. Elena's stomach tightened. Close, like family? Close like trust, Mara said, then turned back to Adrian. We've traced 2 more leaks in the past week. Warehouse manifests, route logs, encrypted channels. Someone's feeding them intel that only your inner circle would know. Adrian's jaw flexed. List of suspects? 6, Mara replied, but only one with access to both networks. Their eyes met in a silence full of unspoken grief. Elena studied them, sensing more history than either would admit. "You think it's someone you care about?" Adrian didn't answer. He turned toward the window instead, the city skyline reflected in the glass like a chessboard waiting for his next move. "Volkov's testing you," Elena said softly. "He wants you off balance." "He wants chaos," Adrian corrected. "He'll use any weapon he can find, including people." "And what will you use?" His eyes found hers again, cold steel meeting warmth. "Whatever it takes." Later that afternoon, Adrian led her into a room she hadn't seen before. It was wide, low-lit, and lined with maps. New York divided into color-coded zones, red pins marking incidents, blue marking allies. A digital board glowed with scrolling data. It wasn't a war room. It was a confession. "This is what peace costs," he said quietly. Elena stepped closer. "You built all this to control violence." "To contain it," he corrected. "There's a difference. If I walk away, it spills. Innocent people drown in the tide." "You sound like a man trying to justify the ocean." He looked at her, long and hard. "You still believe everything's black and white?" "No," she whispered. "But I believe people choose which shade they live in." For the first time, his expression cracked open. Not with anger, but with something almost raw. "What shade am I, Elena?" She held his gaze, steady and sure, the kind trying to wash off the blood. He laughed softly, a sound that hurt more than silence. "You talk like someone who hasn't seen enough." "I've seen plenty," she said, voice firm. "What I haven't seen is anyone fight to get out." Something changed between them in that breath. Not romance, not yet, but recognition. Two souls built from rubble, daring to build something new. A guard interrupted with a knock. "Sir, call for you. It's urgent." Adrian took the phone, listened, then froze. His voice dropped an octave. "Say that again." Mara appeared instantly. "What happened?" He ended the call, eyes dark. "Volkov's men hit one of our docks. Casualties. But they left something behind." "What?" "A message." He looked at Elena. "They want to trade." Again. Her pulse spiked. "Who?" "They took one of mine this time. In exchange." His words hardened. "They want you." The room chilled. Elena's mind flashed with images of her father tied to that chair, of guns and blood and promises. She swallowed hard. "Then we don't give them what they want." Adrian nodded. "We don't. But this changes everything." Mara crossed her arms. "We'll need to move safe houses, tighten routes, vet everyone again." "No," Adrian said. "We go on offense." Elena stared at him. "You mean war?" He turned to her, eyes steady. "No, Elena. Not war. Balance." That night, while the city slept, Adrian stood alone on the balcony, a glass of whiskey catching the glow of the skyline. Elena joined him quietly, wrapping her cardigan tighter against the wind. "Do you ever wish you'd chosen another life?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "This life chose me. My father left me a crown made of ash. I'm just trying not to burn with it." She studied him, the hardness and hurt coexisting like storm clouds and light. "Maybe it's time to build a different kingdom." He looked at her then, really looked. "With what? Blueprints and hope?" "With someone who believes it's possible." Silence stretched, soft and electric. Somewhere below a siren wailed, distant as memory. Adrian finished his drink, set the glass down, and said quietly, "If I ever make it out of this, it'll be because of you." Elena's breath caught. "And if you don't?" He smiled without warmth. "Then I'll still owe you a better world." Morning arrived wrapped in quiet lies. The sky over Manhattan glowed silver, cold and polished, as if it too were trying to hide its cracks. Inside the safe house, silence wasn't peace. It was pressure, the kind that made walls listen. Elena sat at the breakfast table, untouched toast cooling beside her. Across from her, Adrian reviewed a folder thick with betrayal. Every page was a story in someone else's handwriting, ledger lines, Access logs, internal authorizations that shouldn't exist. "This isn't a leak," he said finally. "It's surgery." Mara stood behind him, tablet in hand, her posture like a blade. "We've cross-checked timestamps, passcodes, internal keys. Whoever planted that tracker and funneled intel to Volkov, they weren't guessing." Elena's gaze moved from one to the other. "You said 6 suspects. Who's left?" Mara hesitated, a shadow passing over her face. "You won't like the answer." Adrian turned the last page, eyes hardening like cooling metal. "It's him." "Who?" Elena asked. Adrian closed the file with quiet finality. "Antonio." And the name meant nothing to Elena, but the weight in Adrian's voice told her enough. "Your friend?" she asked softly. "My cousin," he corrected. "Raised together, trained together. My father trusted him, so did I." The admission cracked something inside him, a sound she could almost hear. Mara crossed her arms. "He's been with you since day one. That gives him access to everything. And motive." Adrian's eyes darkened. "He's been playing both sides." Elena reached across the table, fingers brushing the file. "Why? Money?" "Power," Adrian said quietly. "He's always believed I inherited what he deserved. This," he tapped the file, "is his coup. He turns Volkov into a battering ram, lets them take my crown, and picks through the ashes." The room hummed with tension. Outside, a siren wailed, fitting, almost scripted. "So what happens now?" Elena asked. "Now," Adrian said, standing. "We set a trap." Hours later, the Valente penthouse became a stage. Men moved like shadows, installing covert mics, rerouting feeds, closing exits. Mara orchestrated the operation with surgical precision. Elena, restless, watched from the mezzanine, heart thudding against her ribs. When Antonio arrived, the room shifted. He was handsome in that effortless, careless way, light gray suit, smile rehearsed for trust. To anyone else, he looked like family. "Cousin," he greeted, spreading his arms. "Long time." Adrian didn't return the smile. "Too long." Antonio's gaze slid past him and landed on Elena. "And you must be the reason for all the rumors. The girl who turned a king into a husband." Elena stiffened. "I'm not part of your world." He laughed softly. "Oh, Carita, whether you like it or not, you're the story everyone's telling." Adrian cut in, voice low. "Sit." For 10 minutes, the two men danced in code, numbers disguised as pleasantries, threats folded inside old jokes. Elena could almost see the board between them. Every move a calculation, every word a test. Then Adrian played his hand. He slid a flash drive across the table. "Your signature's on a requisition order for a tracker placed under Elena's car." Antonio's smile didn't break. "You think I'd be sloppy enough to leave a trail?" "I think you wanted me to find it," Adrian said. "You wanted me angry, distracted." "Careful," Antonio murmured. "Accusations have consequences. So does treason." For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Antonio leaned back, slow and amused. "Maybe you've been in love too long, cousin. It makes you see ghosts." Mara stepped forward, tablet in hand. "We have timestamps, encrypted transfers, voice signatures." "Fabricated," Antonio interrupted. "Anyone could forge a chain." Elena's voice cut through the air. "Why would they?" He turned to her, expression shifting from charm to venom. "Because love makes fools, and fools are easy to frame." She didn't flinch. "You don't sound innocent." He smirked. "Innocence is for the dead." Adrian's fist clenched at his side. "Take him." 2 guards stepped forward. Antonio rose without resistance, adjusting his cufflinks like this was theater. "Careful, Adrian. Once you start purging family, there's no one left to trust." As they led him away, he turned one last time, eyes locking on Elena. "You think you're saving him," he said softly, "but you're just giving him a reason to fall." The door shut. Silence settled, heavy and electric. Elena exhaled, only then realizing she'd been holding her breath. "He's right about one thing," she whispered, Trust cuts both ways. Adrian turned to her. What are you saying? She met his gaze, her own steady. Someone called me, said the debt, my father's debt, wasn't 2 million. It was 50,000. His expression didn't change. That was worse than anger. Who told you that? I don't know. The voice was masked. But they said you inflated it. To corner me. Mara froze mid-step. The air turned brittle. Adrian's jaw tightened. And you believe them? I don't know what to believe anymore. For the first time, he looked almost hurt. Elena, I saved your father's life. And maybe you bought mine, she said quietly. Either way, you own us. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Her voice cracked, soft but sharp. A contract? A cage dressed like a rescue? He stepped forward, but she retreated a step. You think I needed to trick you? He asked. You were already running into the fire. I just gave you somewhere to land. Somewhere you controlled. His breath came slower now, measured, dangerous. I don't control you, Elena. If I did, you wouldn't still be standing here accusing me. She didn't answer. Her throat felt tight, her eyes burning. Behind them, Mara quietly excused herself, leaving the storm to the ones who started it. Adrian took a breath, steadying himself. You want the truth? I don't care about numbers. I care about leverage. Every enemy I've ever had learned one thing. You protect what matters by making it untouchable. That's what I was trying to do. Her voice broke. By taking away my choice. No, he said, softer now. By giving you one. For a moment, silence swallowed them whole. Then Elena turned away, tears she refused to shed glinting in the light. Maybe that's the part you still don't understand. She left before he could answer. The door closed gently, too gently for the noise inside her chest. Adrian stood alone in the war room, hands braced on the table, the city map glowing under him. He stared at the red pins, the blue zones, the fractures he couldn't fix, and for the first time in years, he didn't know which enemy scared him more, Volkov's army or the woman who saw through his armor. The explosion ripped through the night like a verdict. Glass shattered across the penthouse floor, alarms wailed, and smoke clawed its way into every corridor. Elena hit the ground before thought caught up, heat and light swallowing sound. For a heartbeat, she couldn't tell if she was screaming or if the world was. Then, silence, the kind that follows destruction. Elena! Adrian's voice, rough, frantic, alive. She coughed, pushing through the haze, eyes burning. Here! A beam of light cut through smoke. Mara, moving with military precision, weapon drawn. Clear the west wing, she shouted. Secondary blast risk. Move! Adrian appeared, bleeding from a shallow cut along his temple, hand outstretched. Come on, now! She grabbed it, stumbling to her feet. The room that had been a cathedral of marble and glass was now a ruin, paintings torn, walls cracked, the city visible through a gaping wound where windows used to be. What was it? She gasped. C4, Mara snapped. Small charge, targeted, message, not massacre. Elena's heart raced. From who? Adrian's jaw hardened. Who do you think? They moved fast, down the emergency stairwell, through corridors that smelled of smoke and betrayal. Outside, rain fell in silver knives, hissing against the wreckage. Sirens rose in the distance, too late to matter. Paramedics met them at the curb, but Adrian waved them off. We handle our own, he said, voice cold as steel. Then to Mara. Pull the footage. Already on it. Elena shivered, adrenaline fading to ache. You could have died. He looked at her, expression unreadable. So could you. I'm not the one they want. His gaze darkened. You're exactly what they want. An hour later, they gathered in the surveillance suite, screens flickering with feeds from every corner of the property. Mara scrubbed through footage until the timestamp matched the blast. There. She froze the image. A shadowed figure at the main gate. Hooded, deliberate, carrying a small case. Adrian leaned closer. Zoom. Mara magnified the frame. The resolution broke into static, but not before a single detail emerged. A gloved hand with a tattoo. A wolf's head, inked in black. Elena's breath caught. Antonio. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. He's declared war. Mara exhaled. We picked up chatter on encrypted channels. Volkov's men are moving east, consolidating ground. And there's more. She hesitated. They're claiming to have your father, again. Elena froze. No, he's safe, he's under guard. They hit the convoy, Mara said. We lost contact 20 minutes ago. Elena felt the world tilt. Then we go, now. Adrian caught her arm. Not like this. I'm not staying here. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. If you run into that, they win. Your leverage, Elena. The second they have you, every move I make becomes theirs. Then what? Sit here while they kill him? He stepped closer, the storm in his eyes matching hers. You think I don't care? He's under my protection. That means if he dies, his blood's on my hands. She blinked, surprised by the tremor beneath his calm. Something fragile, human, leaking through the armor. Mara interrupted quietly. We have a signal. Weak, but traceable. It's coming from Pier 19. Adrian's decision was instant. Mobilize. Elena shook her head. I'm coming. No. I'm not asking. He stared at her, then sighed, the sound more surrender than consent. Fine, but you stay within reach. You follow my lead. One step off, and I carry you out. Deal. Pier 19 loomed like a ghost against the East River. Abandoned cranes, rusted rails, fog curling off the water. Floodlights cut thin slices through mist. Somewhere inside, Raphael was breathing, or not. They moved in silence, Mara and her team sweeping the perimeter, Adrian and Elena pressing through the main corridor. The air smelled of salt and rust and gunpowder memory. Then, a voice, amplified by distance. Valente! Adrian froze. Volkov stepped out from the shadows, flanked by soldiers in black. His grin was a knife too polished to rust. You bring her, he said, nodding toward Elena. Like a gift. She comes nowhere, Adrian said. You have what's mine. We end this tonight. Volkov laughed. You think you set terms? You bleed. I build. He snapped his fingers. Two men dragged Raphael forward, bound, bruised, alive. Elena's heart cracked. Dad. Raphael lifted his head weakly. Elena, no. Adrian stepped forward, voice low. Let him go. Volkov smirked. Trade. There is no trade. Then there is blood. The world contracted. Guns rose. Shadows tensed. Then, movement. A shot cracked. Not from Volkov's men. From behind. The bullet struck one of Volkov's guards. Chaos exploded. Mara's team stormed from the flanks, precision incarnate. Gunfire shredded the quiet. Elena ducked behind a crate, heart hammering, smoke and sparks swallowing everything. Through it all, Adrian moved like inevitability. Swift, surgical, unstoppable. When it was over, silence returned. Raw, ringing, holy. Raphael coughed, coughing up blood and gratitude. Adrian knelt, cutting the ropes with a knife from his belt. You're safe, he said. Raphael looked up, eyes glassy. He said, the price was her. Adrian glanced at Elena. Not anymore. Mara approached, radio pressed to her ear. Pier secure. Casualties minimal. Antonio fled before we breached. Adrian's jaw hardened. He won't get far. Elena knelt beside her father, pressing a shaking hand to his cheek. We're okay, Dad. It's over. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't. Not until the lie between her and Adrian broke, or broke them. Later, back at the safe house, the air was thick with exhaustion and questions. Raphael slept under sedation. Mara debriefed with her team. Elena found Adrian in the war room, staring at the maps again, hands on the table, shoulders heavy. You were right, she said softly. He didn't turn. About what? Antonio, the betrayal, the trap. And wrong about everything else, he said. No. She stepped closer. Just scared. He looked up, eyes tired. You think fear excuses doubt? No, she whispered, but it explains it. For a long moment, neither spoke. The city stretched beyond the window, unforgiving, alive. Finally, he said, "You asked me once what shade I live in. Tonight I saw it." She tilted her head. "And?" He met her gaze. "Gray can still hold light." Something in her broke open, quietly, completely. She reached for him, fingers trembling, and this time he didn't pull away. He cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek, touch both promise and apology. "No more lies. No more walls," she replied. Outside, thunder rolled, a storm clearing, or one still coming. Inside, they stood in the wreckage of truth, building something fragile, something new. Morning came slow, like a wound healing wrong. Light spilled across the shattered skyline, touching broken glass and smoke trails left from the night before. The city wore its scars openly. So did she. Elena woke to the sound of rain against the safe house windows, soft but relentless, like a heartbeat refusing to fade. Her body ached, her throat burned from shouting, and her mind refused the mercy of silence. Somewhere in another room, her father slept under watch. Somewhere deeper in the building, Adrian was already working. She pressed a hand against her abdomen, light, tentative. There was no movement, no proof, only instinct and the memory of one missed cycle after another. Fear whispered through her veins, part awe, part terror. Life, inside chaos. Hope, where there should only be survival. "Elena?" Mara's voice came from the doorway, gentler than usual. "You're awake." She nodded, forcing composure. "How bad is it?" Piers locked down. Volkov's men scattered. Antonio's still out there, but bleeding. Mara hesitated. "You should eat something." "I'm not hungry." "You should still eat," Mara said softly, like a mother might. "Strength isn't optional in this life." Elena gave a ghost of a smile. "You sound like him." Mara's lips quirked. "Then maybe you should listen." When the door closed, silence returned, and with it, the truth she'd been trying not to face. She couldn't hide this much longer. Not from him. Not from herself. The child inside her was a heartbeat waiting to be heard, and a target waiting to be exploited. She rose, washed her face, and stared at her reflection. The woman in the mirror looked older, sharper, nothing like the student who'd once believed that hard work could fix the world. This woman knew better. This woman had blood on her hands, and a secret that could burn down everything she'd built. She found Adrian in the operations room, still in last night's clothes, sleeves rolled up, tension carved deep into his features. He was bent over a table littered with maps and dossiers, speaking low into a headset. "Move the convoy north. Triple the guard rotation. No one in or out without clearance." When he saw her, he paused, lifting the earpiece away. "You should be resting." "I can't." Her voice was too steady to be calm. He studied her, something flickering in his pale eyes. "What is it?" Elena stepped closer. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "We need to talk." That got his attention. He dismissed the line and turned fully toward her. "Tell me." "I'm pregnant." The words dropped like a stone in still water, ripples spreading through the air, through his breath, through her certainty. He didn't speak at first, didn't move, just looked at her as if the universe had shifted and no one had told him why. She wrapped her arms around herself, bracing for silence, for rejection, for the storm. "I didn't plan it. I didn't even know until everything went insane." Finally, he inhaled, sharp and shallow. "How long?" 6 weeks, maybe 7. Adrian moved closer, slow, careful, as though afraid she might vanish. "And you're sure?" She nodded. "Yes." He reached out, stopping just short of touching her. "You should have told me sooner." "I wanted to," she whispered, "but you were fighting wars. I was trying to stay alive." Silence stretched between them, taut and trembling. Then, softly, "You're carrying my child." Her breath caught. "Our child." Something broke across his face. A tremor, a flash of wonder so raw it hurt to see. His hand came up, resting over hers on her stomach. Warmth spread through her, fragile, fleeting. "You've given me something I never thought I'd have," he said, voice low, reverent. "A future." Her throat tightened. "Then let's build one that isn't made of blood." Before he could answer, the door burst open. Mara stood there, phone in hand, face pale. "We have a situation." Adrian's tone snapped to command. "Report." "It's Antonio. He's resurfaced, and he's not alone." Elena's heart dropped. "Who?" Mara hesitated. "The Bratva. What's left of them. He's offering them something in exchange for their backing." "What?" Adrian demanded. Mara's eyes flicked to Elena, then away. Her. The room tilted. "Me?" "Antonio told them he can deliver the heir," Mara said. "Your child. He's promising a bloodline strong enough to unify both syndicates. They think if they control you, they control him." Elena's knees almost gave out. "They don't even know if—" "They don't need proof," Adrian cut in, voice steel. "Rumor is enough." Mara nodded grimly. "They've set a meeting, tomorrow night. He's invited every rival boss still standing. He's making his play for the throne." Adrian swore under his breath, then turned to Elena. "You're not leaving this building. I'm not hiding while he sells my name. This isn't about pride." "No," she said, fire rising in her chest. "It's about choice. Mine." Mara looked between them. "If Antonio's building an alliance, he'll need leverage. And right now, that means her. We could turn it." Adrian frowned. "How?" "Bait." Mara's voice was steady. "We leak her location, set the trap on our terms." Elena shook her head. "You want to use me?" "I want to stop him," Mara said. "And right now, you're the only thing he wants more than power." Adrian's jaw flexed. "No, it's too dangerous." "And what's the alternative?" Elena shot back. "Wait until he storms the gates?" He looked at her, eyes fierce with conflict. "You're carrying my child. I won't gamble with that." She met his gaze, unflinching. "You already are. Every second we breathe in his shadow is a risk. At least let me fight for something that's mine." For a heartbeat silence. Then Mara said quietly, "She's right." Adrian exhaled slowly, the sound more defeat than agreement. "Fine, but I lead. You follow. One wrong move." "I know," Elena whispered. "You carry me out." He almost smiled. "Almost. Don't make me." That night, the safe house became a battlefield of preparations, plans drawn in red ink, weapons laid out like promises. Mara coordinated routes, while Adrian oversaw every detail, relentless, restless. Elena sat in the corner, hand over her stomach, listening to the rhythm beneath her palm. 2 heartbeats, 1 plan, no guarantees. She looked up, watching Adrian as he spoke with Mara, commanding, calculating, dangerous. The man the world feared, the man she loved, the father of her child. And for the first time she understood what kind of strength it would take to raise a child in this world, one built not on fear but on choices made in the dark. Tomorrow they would face Antonio. Tomorrow she would stop running. Tomorrow everything would break, or begin again. The night reeked of rain and war. Storm clouds churned over the East River, their reflections rippling across the black water like omens. Floodlights carved through fog, casting the docks in ghostlight. Every shadow held a secret. Every echo carried a warning. Elena adjusted the earpiece, her fingers steady even as her heart thundered. She wore no armor, no weapon, just a wire beneath her coat and the weight of 2 lives in her belly. Around her, Mara's strike team took positions, moving like phantoms along the rooftops. Every breath, every heartbeat synced to one goal: end Antonio before he ended them. Adrian's voice came through the comm, low and razor-sharp. "Visual confirmed, 2 vehicles inbound, 6 men minimum." "Copy," Mara replied. "Team ready." Elena scanned the horizon. Through the haze, headlights appeared, piercing the mist, cutting closer. Her pulse kicked harder. "He's here." "Stay on script," Adrian murmured. No heroics. I'll try, she said, because promising obedience wasn't her nature anymore. The convoy rolled to a stop, engines idling like growling beasts. Doors opened. Boots hit pavement. Antonio emerged last. His suit immaculate, his grin shark-sharp. And in his hand, glinting under the floodlights, was a single folded photo. The sonogram. Elena, he called, voice smooth as silk over steel. My beautiful niece. She stood her ground, chin high. You're no family of mine. Antonio laughed softly, stepping closer. Oh, but you're wrong. Blood is destiny, and that child. He held the photo aloft. That child is the key to everything. You're using lies to build an empire, she snapped. You'll burn before you rule. Perhaps, he spread his arms, but I'll burn the world with me. Through her earpiece, Adrian's voice was ice. On my mark. Antonio circled her slowly, a wolf savoring the chase. Do you even know what you're carrying, Elena? That child isn't just his heir. It's his weakness. And in our world, weakness is fatal. She met his gaze, calm now, deadly calm. Then you shouldn't have taught me how to shoot. His smile faltered, just a fraction, before his instinct screamed. Too late. Now! Adrian barked. The night exploded. Mara's team descended like a storm, gunfire cracking, shadows splitting apart. Antonio's men scrambled, returning fire, but the ambush was surgical, precise. Elena dove for cover behind a shipping crate, adrenaline drowning fear. Sparks lit the fog like fireworks from hell. Through the chaos, she saw Adrian moving, dark coat billowing, weapon steady, death in motion. Antonio snarled orders, firing wild as his empire crumbled around him. Fall back! Fall back! But Mara was already there, emerging from smoke, gun raised, eyes hard. You're out of ground, Castellano. He spun, aimed, and hesitated. Her shot came first. Antonio staggered, clutching his side, disbelief painted across his face. Mara? Should have stayed buried, she said. He stumbled back, but didn't fall. Not yet. His eyes found Elena, feral and furious. You think this ends with me? Elena rose, breath steady. No, it ends with me. He lifted his weapon. She didn't flinch. But before he could fire, Adrian appeared, his shot clean, final. Antonio collapsed, eyes wide, blood dark against the concrete. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Rain, smoke, silence. Then Adrian was at her side, hands searching for wounds, voice trembling despite his calm. Are you hurt? She shook her head, tears and rain mingling on her cheeks. No, but it's over, isn't it? He looked down at Antonio's body, at the man who'd betrayed them both, and exhaled like he'd been holding that breath his whole life. It's over. Mara approached, wiping blood from her brow. Pier secure, no survivors. Adrian nodded. Clean the scene, no traces. Elena turned away, nausea curling in her gut, not from fear, but from the weight of what survival cost. Her hand went to her stomach. 2 heartbeats. One war finally ended. But peace, she knew, would not come easily. Back at the safe house, dawn broke over the river. Gray light bleeding through clouds, washing the blood from the world, but not from memory. Adrian stood at the window, silent, shirt torn, knuckles raw. Elena watched him from across the room, feeling the distance between what they'd become and what they'd been. He spoke first. You shouldn't have been there. You needed me there. He turned, eyes dark but not cold. That's not the point. Then what is? She asked softly. That I'm your weakness, or that you're mine? He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping inches away. That you matter more than winning. She blinked. We've both killed to survive. What makes us different from him? Adrian's voice dropped to a whisper. We stop when we have something worth saving. Her throat tightened. And do we? He reached for her hand, guiding it to his chest, over the steady drum of his heart. We do now. For a moment, silence. Fragile, full, human. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Inside, life began to return. Mara entered quietly. It's done. Antonio's men are in retreat. The council will name you interim head until the families vote. I didn't want a throne, Adrian muttered. Mara's gaze flicked between them. You've got one anyway. The question is, what will you build on it? Adrian looked at Elena. Something better. She smiled faintly, exhaustion softening her features. Then build it. He brushed a damp strand of hair from her face. With you? With me, she said. But not for us, for them. Her hand rested again on her belly. His eyes softened. Our legacy. No, she whispered. Our redemption. That night, under the hush of rain and sirens, they buried Antonio in unmarked ground. No flowers, no prayers, only silence. The man who'd tried to own their future now belonged to the past. Elena stood beside Adrian, fingers laced with his. She didn't weep. Neither did he. Some endings are too heavy for tears. When they turned away, dawn had begun to break again, weak light spreading across a sky scrubbed clean by war. The city still slept, unaware that its rulers had changed, that its peace was paid for in blood. Elena looked at Adrian. What happens now? He thought for a moment, then said, Now, we build a world our child won't have to escape. She nodded, hope trembling like new light. Then let's begin. Peace arrived like a rumor, whispered, fragile, unbelievable. For the first time in months, the city slept without gunfire. Streets once stained by war now shimmered under fresh rain, and the air carried the cautious breath of something close to hope. Inside the Valente estate, silence reigned. No guards shouting orders, no radios crackling with threat, just the rhythmic echo of a house learning to rest again. Elena stood by the window of her new office, watching morning light stretch across the skyline. Her reflection in the glass looked different now, stronger, sharper, but gentler too. A woman who had fought, bled, and survived. A woman who carried both life and legacy within her. Behind her, papers rustled. You should be resting, Adrian said, stepping in quietly. His voice carried warmth she hadn't heard in weeks. I can't, she murmured. Every time I close my eyes, I see him. Antonio? She nodded. The way it ended. The way he looked at me like he knew something I didn't. Adrian crossed to her, his hand resting on the small of her back. He was bluffing, trying to die with power. Maybe, she said. Or maybe he was telling the truth. A soft knock interrupted them. Mara entered, face unreadable, a file in hand. We've got a problem. Adrian straightened. Define problem. This. Mara laid the file on the desk. Inside were surveillance stills. Grainy, time-stamped, impossible. Elena's breath caught. That's impossible. The photo showed Antonio, alive, standing at the edge of a helipad 3 hours after his supposed death. Adrian frowned. Deepfake? We ran it through analysis, Mara said. It's clean. GPS matches. Timestamp aligns with the window after the pier cleared. Whoever we buried wasn't him. Elena's knees went weak. Then who did we— A double, Adrian said darkly. He planned this. Mara nodded. And he's not alone. We've intercepted encrypted traffic, new alliances forming under a name we haven't seen before. What name? Elena whispered. Mara hesitated, then said, The Wolf. Adrian froze. That was my father's call sign. Elena turned sharply. Your father? But he's dead, Adrian finished. Or supposed to be. The silence that followed was heavier than any gunfire. Elena searched his face, reading the war beneath his calm. You think he's alive? I don't want to, Adrian said. But if Antonio's working with someone using that name, then everything we've done, everything I thought I buried, is coming back. Mara folded her arms. We traced a signal to an off-grid compound in Vermont. Military-grade encryption. Someone's funding this. Adrian looked at the map spread across the table, the red dots marking each new enemy movement. He's consolidating power, finishing what the old family started. Elena's pulse quickened. Then we end it. Adrian shook his head. No, not yet. If my father's alive, if he's behind this, then this isn't war. It's personal. Then make it personal, she snapped. He left you to fight his battles. He made you this. You don't owe him silence. He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, the hardened leader vanished. In his place was the boy who had buried his father's name under blood and shadow. I swore I'd never become him. You didn't, she said softly. You built something he never could. Love. Her hand found his, steady and sure. We face him together. Mara cleared her throat. There's more. She slid a second photo across the table. This came through a private courier. No return address. Elena picked it up and froze. It was a sonogram. Hers. With a message scrawled across the back in red ink. Every empire begins with blood. Bring me what's mine. A. Her hand trembled. He knows. Adrian's eyes darkened. He always knew. He's been watching longer than we realized. Mara exhaled. He's not just after the throne. He's after the child. Elena pressed a hand to her abdomen. Fear surged, sharp and primal. Then we leave. We disappear. Adrian's jaw clenched. You think running will stop him? He'll hunt us to the edge of the earth. Then what do? He looked at her, voice like iron. We finish this. 2 days later, Vermont. Snow fell in soft sheets, muffling the world to silence. The compound rose from the white like a fortress, steel, glass, and ghosts. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, unaware that death moved closer with every breath. Elena crouched behind a snow-covered truck, breath misting in the cold. You sure about this? Adrian nodded, eyes fixed on the compound. No, but I'm sure about you. Her heart twisted. You think he'll be there? I know he will. Mara's voice crackled over comms. Position set. On your go. Adrian exhaled. Go. They moved like shadows, through fences, across frozen ground, into the lion's den. Inside, warmth hit like betrayal. Firelight danced across polished floors and portraits of men who'd built kingdoms on corpses. At the heart of the room, seated like a monarch waiting for confession, was a man Elena recognized from old photographs. Salt and pepper hair, eyes like Adrian's, only colder. Hello, son, the man said. Adrian froze. You're supposed to be dead. Supposed to be, his father echoed, smiling faintly. But ghosts are stubborn things. Elena's hand went to Adrian's arm. He's real. The older man stood, unhurried. And you must be Elena, the girl who tamed a Valente. I see why he disobeyed orders. Orders? Adrian snapped. You vanished. Left me to bury you. I left you to survive, his father said. To rebuild what I couldn't. You built a graveyard. I built an empire, the man said, voice rising. And you squandered it on mercy. Adrian stepped forward, fury burning through calm. Mercy built what fear destroyed. I won because I stopped killing for ghosts. His father's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then why are you here with a gun in your hand and vengeance in your heart? Elena interjected softly. Because you threatened his family. The older Valente's gaze dropped to her stomach. Ah, the heir, the future. Adrian raised his weapon. One more word, and you'll never see it. For a long frozen moment, father and son stared at each other. Mirror images divided by time, by loss, by blood. The past, alive again, demanding tribute. Then, faintly, from behind them, footsteps. Antonio stepped out of the shadows, alive and smiling. You didn't think I'd miss the reunion, did you? Elena's heart stopped. You. He bowed. Death is overrated. Mara's voice crackled in the earpiece, urgent. It's a trap. Pull out. But the doors sealed. Steel. Locks. No escape. Adrian's father spread his hands. You came for war, son. Welcome home. The room smelled of gun oil and memory. Steel walls. Cold light. Shadows draped across marble floors like old sins. Elena stood between two worlds. the man she loved, and the man who'd made him. Behind her, snow flurried against the glass, whispering of silence. Ahead, history waited to be rewritten in blood. Adrian's father, Luciano Valente, sat behind a mahogany desk, hands folded, gaze sharp. Antonio leaned beside him, smirking like a ghost that refused to stay buried. Adrian kept his weapon trained, voice low, steady. "You faked your death, built a war behind my back." Luciano's smile was thin. "No, son. I built a legacy. You chose to burn it." "A legacy of corpses," Adrian snapped. "You called it strength. I call it cowardice." Luciano's eyes gleamed. "You think compassion makes you strong? Love makes you weak. That woman," his gaze cut to Elena, "will be the end of you." Adrian stepped in front of her. "No, she's the reason I'm still standing." Antonio's laugh cracked the air. "Poetic, heir of Valente, defender of the crown, and yet he still can't see. This isn't love. It's leverage." Elena's voice sliced through. "Leverage is what you use when you've already lost." Antonio's smile vanished. Brave words for someone surrounded. Mara's voice broke through the calm, static, frantic. "Adrian, reinforcements inbound. 10 hostiles, south wing. We can breach in 90 seconds. He didn't look away from his father. "Hold position." Luciano tilted his head, almost proud. "Still issuing orders. You got that from me." "I got everything I hate from you," Adrian said, "but I'm done carrying your ghosts." Luciano rose slowly, circling the desk. "You can't kill me, boy. If you do, you become me." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Maybe the only way to break the curse is to end it." "Then shoot," Luciano whispered. "Prove you're your father's son." Silence filled the room, thick, suffocating, eternal. Elena's hand slid into his, fingers trembling but sure. "You don't have to," she said softly. "He's already dead. You buried him when you chose love." Adrian's breath hitched. His gaze softened, then hardened again as Antonio reached for his gun. The shot was instinct. Clean. Final. Antonio fell, eyes wide, shock frozen on his lips. Luciano didn't flinch. "You saved your woman, but you doomed your soul." "No," Adrian said. "I freed it." Luciano lunged for the weapon, but Mara burst through the door, team behind her, muzzle flash splitting the air. The blast threw him back. He collapsed against the desk, eyes still open, as if stunned that death had finally found him. Smoke hung heavy. Silence settled like dust after thunder. Adrian lowered his gun, chest heaving. Elena stepped forward, laying a trembling hand on his arm. "It's over." He turned, eyes hollowed by grief and relief. "I never wanted this." "I know," she whispered. "That's why you're not him." Luciano's final breath rasped through the room. "You think you've won, but power doesn't die. It waits." Adrian knelt beside him. "Then I'll build something it can't corrupt." Luciano's eyes flicked to Elena's belly, a ghost of a smile haunting his lips. "Then you'd better start soon." And then he was gone. They left the compound as dawn broke, the sky painted in gold and fire. Snow melted under their boots, washing blood back into earth. Mara covered their retreat, her team silent, efficient, soldiers leaving a battlefield and entering legend. Outside, wind whipped through the pines. Elena stopped, staring back at the fortress disappearing into morning mist. "Do you think it ever ends?" Adrian joined her, hand resting over hers. "No, but we can choose what begins." Her eyes filled with light. "Then let's begin something better." He turned to her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We will. For them. For us." She smiled softly. "You sound like hope." He kissed her forehead. "Maybe that's what we fight for." 6 months later, Brooklyn Carter's coffee gleamed in the sunlight, rebuilt brick by brick. Patrons filled the warm space, laughter, steam, the hum of life returning. On one wall, Sophie's new mural stretched wide, a phoenix rising from the ashes, wings made of city lights and coffee steam. Elena moved behind the counter, her belly now round beneath a soft sweater. Every detail, every scent of roasted beans, every clink of cups, felt like a heartbeat she'd fought for. The bell above the door chimed. Adrian stepped in, wind-tossed and smiling, a rare softness in his eyes. "You're supposed to be resting." "I am," she teased. "Standing rest." He crossed to her, slipped an arm around her waist. "Doctor said soon?" "Any day now." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Guess I should finish the crib." She laughed quietly. "You? With tools?" He grinned. "I've built empires. I can handle a crib." She tilted her head. "Empires fall. Cribs last. Then that's the one I'll build." They shared a quiet moment, the world outside moving on, unaware of the war they'd survived to find this peace. Mara entered then, carrying a small box. "Mail for you two." Adrian frowned. "From who?" "No return address." Elena opened it. Inside was a single silver coin, engraved with a wolf's head. She looked up sharply. "What does it mean?" Mara's eyes darkened. "It means someone's still watching." Adrian took the coin, closing his fist around it. "Then let them. We're not running anymore." Elena met his gaze, calm, unafraid. "We don't hide from ghosts. We outlive them." He smiled. Together, the crib stood by the window, sunlight spilling across soft blankets. In it, a child slept, peaceful, unaware of the blood that had built their home. Elena watched from the rocking chair, journal in hand. She wrote slowly, carefully, as if every word were a promise. "For every heart broken by violence, may love rebuild stronger. For every shadow born of blood, may light endure. And for every name tied to war, may legacy become peace." Behind her, Adrian stood in the doorway, quiet, proud. "What are you writing?" "Our story," she said softly, "so they'll know who we were." He crossed to her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "And who we chose to be." Outside, the city glowed. No longer a battlefield, but a cradle. And for the first time, their world truly felt alive. Because love, when forged in fire, doesn't break. It becomes the legacy itself. If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That's how I'll know you truly liked it. Even if you're watching on your TV, grab a second to join this family of fans who love emotional and heartfelt stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more tales like this one.